Friends, welcome to Crash Batch. Now we are going to start the topic, that is a direct tax topic, income from the head, other sources. The weightage of the topic is minimum 2 to 4 marks, maximum 4 marks, minimum 2 marks. Compulsory we can expect one question for IPCC as well as for final itself. Okay, chalo. So income from the head, other sources. Section number 56 to section number 59 deals about this particular topic. Next one. As for section number 14, there are total 5 heads. First one is the salary, second one is the house property, next one is the PGBP, next one is the capital gain, last one is the other sources. So as you know this topic earlier, now this is the other sources is the last head as well as residuary head, last and residuary head. Now out of the 5 heads, salary is section number 15 to 17, house property is section 22 to 27, PGBP section number 28 to 44 dB, whereas capital gain section 45 to 55A, whereas other sources section 56 to section number 59. So anyhow, today's our agenda is income from the head, other sources. A category topic, just follow. Number 1. First one here, there are total 4 sections. Number 1, 56. Now take it for granted, in every chapter the first section deals about the charging section. What kind of incomes are taxable and what is the nature of the particular income. All the things are covered by section number 56 here. That is nothing but charging section of other sources. Whether one particular income is taxable under that other sources or not can be dealt by the charging section. Next one is called as section number 57, that is nothing but deductions. Next one is the 58, that is nothing but no deductions, means disallowances. If you have taken the deduction, we will disallow. That means no deduction will be allowed with respect to particular expenditure. That is number 58. Last one, 59, that is nothing but deemed income. In fact, it is not an income, but we are presuming that that is the income. So in fact, there are total 4 sections are there, 56, 57, 58 and 59. So 56 is the charging section, 57 is the deductions, 58 is the no deductions, 59 is the deemed income. In fact, only these 4 sections, only the relevant syllabus of particular chapter. Now we would like to cover the first one, section 56, that is called as charging section. What is the charging section? Okay, very important topic it is. Follow. Number 1, it is nothing but last head as well as residuary head. General friends, now we are going to start the charging section, section number 56. As for the charging section, we will come to know what kind of incomes are taxable under the particular head. In fact, there are total 5 heads: salary, house property, PGBP, capital gain, other sources. Now friends, now those incomes which are not taxable under the head salary, not taxable under the head house property, not taxable under the head PGBP, not taxable under the head capital gain, automatically covered under the head IFOS, income from the head other sources. That is the reason it is called as last as well as residuary head. Okay, chalo. But in fact, there are total 4 sections here: 56, 57, 58 and 59. 56 is the charging section. In that charging section, there is one clear point here. Okay, the point is as simple as that. First, there must be an income. I repeat, there must be an income. For example, pocket money. Pocket money is not your income. So under which head it is taxable is meaningless. So point number 1, there must be an income. And number 2, the income is not chargeable under other heads. Number 3, such income is not exempted also. In that case, take it for granted by default the answer is it is taxable under the head IFOS. For example, I have undisclosed income, black money for example. That black money is a income or not? Yes. For your info, illegal income is also taxable under the head IFOS, or illegal income is also taxable as per the provisions of Income Tax Act. So I have undisclosed income. Now that is income. Next one, that undisclosed income not taxed under that salary, not taxed under that house property, not taxed under that PGBP and not taxed under that capital gain. Automatically it may be taxed under that IFOS. And the 2, that undisclosed income is not exempted under section 10, not exempted under section 8, 10 as well as 11, 12, 13. So therefore, take it for granted, undisclosed income is taxable under the head IFOS. So this is the point. See the word, a source of income which does not specifically fall under any other 4 heads, any other 4 heads. and such income is not exempted at all. In this case, that income is taxable under that IFOS. So conclusion, number one, there must be an income. That too, the income is not chargeable to tax. That too, that is not exempted under section 10, 11, 12 as well as 13. In this case, it is taxable under that IFOS. So in your practice or in your job or in your studies, take it for granted, when you heard one particular kind of income, whether that income is taxable or not, you can decide by charging section. Here charging section 56 has given clear idea. There must be an income. The income is not taxable under the other heads. Automatically, it is not exempted. By default, it is taxable under the head IFOS. So this is the point as far as charging section introduction is concerned. Now we will enter into one by one point. First one, let me start with the topic called as casual income. I repeat, casual income. Friends, the name itself indicates that for that purpose of this income, you no need to do anything. So your hard work and other matters are not relevant. The more things are nothing but your luck or your opportunities, certain kind of luck factors only relevant. So that is called as casual income. Now this is also called as sin money. Yes, IN sin money. Okay, so this is the concept used in GST also. In case of sin goods, that is pan masala and all, it is taxable at higher rate of tax. Same way here also, in case of income tax also, sin money is there. So that sin money is taxable or not taxable? Yes, it is taxable. Under which head? IFOS. What are the example? Winning from lotteries, card games, or nothing but TV shows, or next one gambling, betting, etc. Everything is covered. So winning from lottery, card games, TV shows, etc. is covered. It is taxable under the head IFOS, and it is taxable at the rate of 30%. What is the section? 115BB. Friends, your memory code also important. Logic as well as magic both are important. Section 115BB is nothing but, all of you, this is a specific provision for the applicability of tax rates. The moment when you heard 115 series, that is a specific provision in general. So this is 115BB is the specific provision applicable for the purpose of taxation of casual income. It is taxable at the rate of 30%. Here and onwards, memorize the 115BB. BB means bad boys. Certain bad boys will do gambling, betting, playing cards, etc. All the things are covered under section 115BB, that is taxable at the rate of 30%. And for your info, whenever it is casual income, by default, no expenses are allowed and no losses are possible. That means no set off and carry forward provisions are not applicable, and as well as no basic exemption limit also applicable. For example, our friend participated in Kaun Bane Karodpati program and he got the income of only 1 lakh and he does not have any other income. So take it for granted that 1 lakh income is taxable under that IFOS, and it is taxable at the rate of 30% as for section 115BB, and no expenses are allowed. Suppose he wanted to go to Mumbai for the purpose of drawing that 1 lakh. So no expenses are allowed. Boarding, lodging, nothing is allowed. And no losses also. Suppose now you spend 1 lakh and he went to Kaun Bane Karodpati program, he earned after all 10,000. After all 10,000 means here he got 90,000 loss. Sorry, losses are not allowed first of all. So no expenses are allowed, no losses are allowed. Why losses are not allowed? Whenever I am not allowing the expenses, then where is the question of losses for your info? So no losses will be allowed. Next one, basic exemption limit also not applicable. Even though his income is 1 lakh, by default the 1 lakh income is fully taxable. Next one, gross income is only taxable. What is the meaning of gross income? For your info, whenever you got some income, government will not pay, or the person will not pay the entire amount. They will deduct the TDS portion. So gross minus TDS, then only they will give net amount for you. So for your info, you will receive net amount. For example, I got 1 lakh. So they will not give 1 lakh. They will deduct 10,000 by default and they will give 90,000. So in fact, 90,000 is only I have received so far. Then it is also, in that case also, 1 lakh is only taxable. So take it for granted, whenever gross income is not received, that is immaterial, gross income is only taxable. What is a gross income? Net incomes plus TDS portion. Okay, chalo. In exam hall, other sources problem they will give. In the problem, one sentence will be added. Winning from lotteries, net 30,000 or 40,000 something will be given. Whenever they have given that figure, take it for granted that is equivalent to 30%. That is equivalent to 70%. For example, I received 40,000 rupees. Now, the 40,000 is a net innings. Whenever it is a net winnings, that is 70%. Whenever it is 70%, the TDS portion obviously that is 30%. Then what would be the 100%? Like this, we can calculate the entire amount, gross amount. So take it for granted, whenever examiner has given gross amount, nothing to do. Whenever examiner has given net amount, then obviously we need to calculate the gross amount. Okay, chalo. Gross amount is nothing but net plus TDS. Now gross amount we need to calculate, that only taxable. And next one, TDS. Now TDS simultaneously we need to cover. Now what is the TDS provision? 194B, 194BB. Now why there are two sections? 194BB is applicable for winning from horse races, whereas 194B applicable for other than winning from horse races. For example, TV shows, card games, etc. All the things are covered under 194B, whereas winning from horse races are covered under section 194BB. So tax rate 30%. So the TDS must be deducted at the time of actual payment. No payment, no TDS. Whenever the payer is paying the amount, then only TDS must be deducted. So 194B, 194BB. Here some people will get the doubt. Then what is 115BB? 115BB is the tax rate. 194B as well as 194BB is the TDS rates. Next one, no deduction will be allowed under section 80C to 80U. No deduction. No chapter 6A deductions will be allowed. So ultimately no expenses under section 57 and no deduction under section 80C to 80U, and no losses will be allowed. No set off and carry forward, and no basic exemption limit, and no slab rates also. No. Okay, chalo. Same way, yes, flat rate is applicable. Flat rate means that is nothing but 30%, and this is applicable for resident as well as non-resident. For CA final topics, non-resident topic is most important, so it is applicable for resident as well as non-resident. TDS portion also applicable. Just now I told you 194B as well as 194BB. 194B is applicable for other source other than casual income, being winning from horse races, whereas 194BB is applicable for winning from horse races. It is taxable under that IFOS, gross income only taxable. So ultimate conclusion, provisions of section 194B as well as 194BB as well as 115BB are both are applicable for resident as well as non-resident. Both, I repeat, applicable for resident as well as non-resident. Friends, with this we have done with the topic called as casual income. Okay, chalo. So most important point there, gross income is only taxable, not net income. Okay, chalo. Next one, directors. In case of directors, now directors are two types. One is executive directors, one is non-executive director. Executive directors means the relation between the company and director is nothing but employer and employee. Friends, whenever you heard the word employer and employee, it is come under salary chapters, income from the head, salaries. Whenever it is covered under the head salary, TDS also applicable under section 182. Okay, chalo. So here and onwards, remember, in exam hall, if you find the word executive director, it is covered under the head salary. Now, in the case of non-executive director, that means other than executive director, it is covered under the head IFOS, and generally they will get not salary, they will get sitting fees and commission. So it is taxed under the IFOS. The two, TDS applicable under section 194J at the rate of 10%. So here something missing, follow the point clearly. Directors are two types. First one is the executive, second one is the non-executive. Executive director covered under the head salary, non-executive directors are covered under the head IFOS. In that case, whatever the sitting fees or whatever the commission they have received, now it is taxed under the IFOS, and TDS also covered under section 194J at the rate of 10%. Okay, chalo. So with this, second point is also covered. Next one, agricultural income. Friends, even in India today also, 55% of Indians are depend upon the agriculture itself. So majority sections, maybe the figure keep on reducing, maybe even 51%. Now itself, even it is a 51%, don't worry, because most of the Indian majority members in India are depend upon agriculture or agriculture based sector. The two, in our country, agriculture income is not that popular. That is the reason government of India wanted to give this benefit. What is the benefit? You know, it is fully exempted. And in fact, agriculture income is a state subject, not central subject. Now central government cannot collect any tax on agriculture income. Purely it is a state subject. So state government only may collect the tax on agricultural income. Okay, anyhow, I would like to tell you one word, agricultural income, whether taxable or not taxable, that is a question. Number one, where is the land located? That is a question. Yes, land located in abroad. Whenever it is located in abroad, that is foreign agricultural income. So take it for granted, foreign agricultural income is taxable under that IFOS. Immediately student will have doubt, sir, you only said generally agriculture income is exempt. Correct, agriculture income is exempt provided land located in India. If it is land located in India, then it is exempted under section 10 subsection 1. If the land located outside India, that is a foreign agriculture income, it is fully taxable. Next one, income tax on agriculture income is a state subject. That is list number 2. Majority people don't know. I'm telling you the word follow. It is a state subject. State government can collect or cannot collect. That is their discretionary. But government of India cannot collect the tax on agriculture. That is the reason, take it for granted, Indian agriculture income is fully exempt, whereas foreign agriculture income is fully taxable under the IFOS. Next topic, that is nothing but income tax. So what is income tax? Listen, now every person who has taxable income is liable to pay income tax to the government. Sometimes by mistake we will pay excess amount of income tax. That excess amount we will get refund. Take it for granted, refund of income tax is not an income. The reason, whatever I have given, I have received back. Then where is the income at all? So there is no question of taxability. See the word income tax paid, then there is no deduction. So for your info, income tax payment is also not allowed as deduction under PGBP as well as under the head IFOS. Same way, income tax refund also not taxable. Okay, so neither deduction allowed nor taxable as far as income tax. So income tax will not be allowed as deduction under Income Tax Act. Okay, chalo. But for your info, sometimes when they are giving refund lately, on that they will pay interest. So interest on income tax refund is a additional income that is taxable, not under that salary, not under that house property, not under that PGBP, not under that capital gain, obviously covered under that IFOS. See the word, income tax is not allowable expenditure. Interest on income tax is taxable under that IFOS. Okay, chalo. Generally no TDS also there. So in case of interest on income tax, generally no TDS. 194A also not applicable for residents. Residents, I am telling you. Chalo. That's it. With this, 3 topics we have covered. First one is the casual income. Second one is the agricultural income and director income. And next one is the interest on income tax refund is also taxable under that IFOS. Next one, undisclosed income. As I told you earlier, income from undisclosed income is taxable under that IFOS. Friends, next topic is pension. As far as pension is concerned, generally employer and employee relationship will be there. So it is taxable under that IFOS or salary, income from that salaries. But some student will get the doubt, sir, I have retired. No, then where is the question of employer and employee relationship? Friends, when you are a employee, when you did the services, then only after your retirement, boss will pay some amount monthly. That is called as the pension. So whenever it is a pension, covered under that salary. So employer-employee relationship taxable under that salary, and TDS also applicable under 192 because salary no, so 192. But here next topic is family pension. What is the family pension? I will take one illustration. One railway department employee Mr. X is there. One day what happened? He met with the accident and died. Once he died, his family members will get the pension. So take it for granted, when you heard the word family members, that means that is a family pension. Why family pension? You know, now they are family members of deceased person, the person who have died. So in this case, it is not covered under the head salary, it is covered under the head IFOS. So family pension received by family members are taxable under that IFOS. Now see the topic pension, employer and employee relationship is there, taxable under that salary, TDS applicable under section 192. Whereas family pension received by family members of deceased person is covered under the head IFOS, income from the head other sources, deduction under section 57 applicable. So what is the deduction? Listen, whenever it is a family pension, family member has to go to the department, has to recover the money. Maybe they may have some expenses, and that is the reason Government of India wanted to give some benefit, that is deduction will be allowed. Deduction means out of that net amount only taxable. For example, I received the family pension of 1 lakh. In this case, least of the following is allowed as deduction out of that 1 lakh. What is the amount? 15,000. That is 15,000 or 1/3 of family pension. I said 1 lakh I have received, right? 1 lakh into 1/3, 33,333 rupees dot, or 15,000, whichever is lower, means in this example 15,000. So out of 1 lakh, 15,000 is allowed as deduction, 85,000 is only taxable. So take it for granted, family pension means pension received by family members of deceased person is covered under that IFOS. Friends, here nothing is mentioned, so it is not covered as, not subject to any kind of TDS, but taxed under that IFOS. Okay, chalo. But for your info, here two exemptions are there, section number 1018 as well as 1019. The moment when you heard section number 10 means exemption. Okay, what is 1018, what is 1019, I would like to cover. It is time for first one is section number 10 subsection 18. So what is this? Applicable for armed forces itself. Okay, chalo. Some armed forces, they did excellence in the battles or wars. At the time, they will get some kind of award, gallantry award, Parmavir Chakra, Veer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra, Saurya Chakra, like this. So the persons are gallantry award winners. So once the person got retired, he will get the pension. So for your info, pension received by whom? That is the question. Answer, pension received by armed forces. Armed forces, not every armed forces being gallantry award winner. Gallantry award winners. That is the first one. And the second one, sometimes they may die. At that time, family members will receive. So second one is the family members of armed forces who are the gallantry award winners. So in this case, the word will change. That is called as family pension. So pension or family pension received by armed forces or family members of armed forces who are the gallantry award winners is by default exempted under section 10 subsection 18. Okay. For example, at the time of Kargil war, some soldiers did excellent job. For the purpose, now they got the Parmavir Chakra or Mahavir Chakra or Saurya Chakra, depend upon the circumstances. Now what happened? The persons got retired, so they will get pension. Suppose the person died. Now at the time, their family members or widow of the family or mother or father may take family pension. Yes, it is exempted under section 10 subsection 18. Okay, chalo. Next topic is section 10 subsection 19. What is that? So this is also applicable for armed forces, but not every armed forces. Armed forces who died, I repeat, who died while discharging duties. I hope you know, in Jammu and Kashmir, so many soldiers are died while doing their jobs. For example, Pulwama attack. So many soldiers, 40 soldiers, so died in that attack. At the time, their family members will get the family pension. Whenever they have received family members, automatically in their hands it is exempted under section 10 subsection 19. Now see the difference ma, section 10 subsection 18. So pension or family pension received by armed forces who are gallantry award winners is fully exempted in the hands of that particular person or in the hands of family members. Next one, section 10 subsection 19. Family pension received by family members of armed forces who died while discharge of their duties is also exempted. So with this, done with the topic section number 1018 as well as section number 1019. Okay, chalo. The differences are as follows. 1018 is only applicable for gallantry award related, whereas 1019 is applicable those armed forces who died. Compulsory they must have died. At that time only their family members will get the family pension. With this, 1018 as well as 1019 both are completed. Friends, next topic is very important topic, dividend. In fact, I will do separate video for the dividend topic. Okay, but fundamental topics I will explain here. In other video, I will explain in detail about dividend as well as deemed dividend. Let me discuss about the dividend. First one is, one company is there. Okay, for example, Reliance Industry. For your info, in Reliance Industry, 80 lakh shareholders are there. Okay, so the shareholders are the owners, right? Chalo. Now, the shareholders will get some amount. That amount is none other than share of profit. So that is nothing but dividend. In fact, dividend is the income of shareholders. But whenever it is income of shareholders, government wanted to collect the tax from the shareholders itself. But it is very difficult. That is the reason they introduced one concept called as this Reliance Industry is subject to tax. That is nothing but dividend distribution tax. That means they have to pay the tax on behalf of shareholders. That is the reason it is called as dividend distribution tax, or also called as corporate dividend tax. Okay, chalo. Now that is as for section 115O. As I told you earlier, when you heard the word 115, that is a specific special provision. So here the provision is applicable only for domestic company. So when they are paying dividend to you, they will deduct the tax and they will remit the tax to the government, and the balance rest of the amount only will be paid to you. Okay, chalo. Whatever the dividend you have received from the company is already they have paid the tax on particular point, on particular income. Therefore, in your hands, that is fully exempted under section 10 subsection 34. So for your info, whatever the dividend we have received from domestic company is fully exempted, because the domestic company already have paid the tax to the central government. Okay, chalo. But one small change. But what happened, so many big shots are getting dividend. Mukesh Ambani is also getting huge amount of dividend. 1 year he has received from one company itself 14,000 crores, which is not taxable. But his driver salary, let us say 12 lakh per annum, it is taxable. So now some person's income is taxable, bada people income is not taxable because of this provision. That is the reason Government of India introduced one section that is called as Bada. Okay, section 115BBDA Bada. Okay, spelling not BADA, BBDA Bada. Okay, memory code I am telling you. It is applicable for Bada people itself. Bada in the sense those people whose aggregate dividend from domestic company in a particular year exceeds, I repeat, exceeds rupees 10 lakhs. In that case, the excess amount of dividend, I repeat, excess amount of dividend is only taxable as per provisions of section 115 BBDA in the hands of shareholders. So shareholders hands it is exempted in under section 10 subsection 34, but after all the exemption under section 1034 applicable only up to 10 lakh. Over and above 10 lakh, the excess amount is only taxable as per the provisions of section 115 BBDA. Chalo. With this, we have done with the topic domestic company dividend. But here some student may get the doubt, sir, double taxation? No. Yes, obviously. In fact, not double taxation, triple taxation. How no? Number one, the company Reliance Industry already paid normal corporate tax. Normal tax they have paid. Okay, chalo. Again, after paying off that kind of tax, but they will pay the amount to shareholders. But wait, at the time of distribution, they have to pay dividend distribution tax or corporate dividend tax as per provisions of section 115O. So one time and second time. And shareholders hands also it is exempt, but up to 10 lakh. Above 10 lakh it is taxable under section 115 BBDA. So triple time tax. But technically triple time, but in fact no. Why? We will say company is separate, shareholders are separate. Whenever the two people are separately there, automatically they have to pay tax also separately. So this the separate tax provisions are applicable. Anyhow, dividend received from domestic company up to 10 lakh is exempt. Over and above 10 lakh is taxable. Chalo. Next topic is foreign company. Friends, take it for granted, in case of foreign company, suppose I have some shares in Microsoft. So Microsoft incorporation, they will pay dividend to me. So I am a shareholder. Take it for granted, whatever the dividend they have paid, they will never ever deduct dividend distribution tax and all. Therefore, in my hand it is taxable. Not under that salary, not under that house property, not under that PGBP, not under the head capital gain. It is taxable under that. Now we can see the chart. Now number one, dividend. So dividend, domestic company as well as foreign company. First one, in the hands of foreign company is not subject to dividend distribution tax or corporate dividend tax. Therefore, in the hands of shareholder it is fully taxable under the head IFOS. Next one, domestic company. In the hands of domestic company, they are subject to dividend distribution tax under section 115O. But whereas in the hands of shareholder it is exempted, subject to provisions of 115 BBDA, except deemed dividend under section 222E. Okay, 222 class E. That we will cover in separate topic. So that is deemed dividend 222 class E. Separate video I will do for that. Okay, chalo. So shareholders exempted it is, but up to 10 lakh. About 10 lakh it is taxable under section 115 BBDA. But for your info, whereas deemed dividend under section 222 class E, by default it is exempted under section 1034, but it is not subject to provisions of section 115 BBDA. Okay, chalo. With this, done with the topic. This dividend. But here I would like to add two words. In case of domestic company, dividend distribution tax applicable, but it is a direct tax. Dividend distribution tax is a direct tax, so not allowed. Whereas in the hands of shareholders of domestic company, it is exempted up to 10 lakh rupees, only 10 lakh. About 10 lakh, it is subject to provisions of section 115 BBDA. Bada memory code, bada people are required to pay tax, even though it is exempt up to 10 lakh. Over and about 10 lakh, the excess amount only taxable. Okay, chalo. But one thing I would like to tell you here, now in case of domestic company, deemed dividend, everything is subject to 115. Oh, I will do separate video for that. Chalo. Next one, it is a direct tax. Dividend distribution tax is a direct tax. So while computing MAT, book profits also, now it is assessment of company. Book profit also, if you have taken the P&L debit with respect to dividend distribution tax, we will add it back. Okay, recap the MAT topic. I will do another video for that. So that amount must be added back. Okay, chalo. So next one, in the hands of foreign company, no dividend distribution tax is applicable. Therefore, in the hands of shareholders, whatever the dividend they have received is fully taxable under the head IFOS. Chalo. With this, we have done with the topic dividend. Okay, but I have not discussed it in detail with respect to what is dividend, what is deemed dividend. So as I told you, as I promised, I am going to do separate video for that. Chalo. Next one, other miscellaneous topics. Start. Income from subletting so of house property. So what is this? Now one person is there, Mr. O. From O, I have taken, my name is Mr. X. I have taken one property on rental basis. I am paying the rent. Yes, it is taxable under the IFOS in the hands of Mr. O. After that, what happened? I have given this billing to someone else, Mr. Y, on subletting basis. Whenever I am giving subletting, he also will pay rent to me. So this rent is covered under which head? That is the question. So income from subletting of house property is not taxed under that house property, is taxed under that IFOS or PGBP. If it is regular, PGBP. If it is occasional, IFOS. Student doubt. Why subletting of house property? Subletting of house property is not covered under the head house property chapter. That is the doubt. For that purpose, we need to refer charging section, section number 22, house property. What is that? There must be one house property. SC must be the owner and not used for own business. Not used for own business or portion. Friends, in that subletting example itself, it clearly indicates that I am not the owner. SC is not the owner. Common sense, when you are not the owner, one of the condition not satisfied, so section 22 not satisfied. When section 22 not satisfied, then the income is not taxable under the head house property. So obviously taxable under the IFOS or taxable under the head PGBP. So if it is a regular, PGBP, if it is occasional, IFOS. So income from subletting of house property is taxable under the head IFOS as of now. Okay, chalo. Next one. Next topic is as follows. Friends, next topic is interest. Very, very important topic. So generally we will get interest in different ways. Everybody tell me what kind of interest. Number one, interest on savings bank. Interest on sometimes some branches FDs or a term deposit, or else any kind of loans given to someone else, or any kind of advances. So debentures interest or securities interest. What kind of interest? Generally take it for granted. When you heard interest income is taxable under the head IFOS. Okay, very, very important topic. So interest income, savings bank interest, FD, term deposit, recurring deposit, advances, loans, and bonds, debentures, as well as investment. Sometimes we will make investment. In all the cases, take it for granted, whatever the interest income you have received, generally taxable under that IFOS. But friends, always you have to remember, direct taxes is consisting of so many provisions, 298 sections itself. Now you have to correlate each and every section with some other sections, and you have to go for comprehensive study. Okay, if you study like a whatever the sentence printed there is no use at all. You must able to correlate with the other provisions itself. Chalo, your savings bank account, I would like to discuss some more deductions here. 80 TTA, 80 TTB. 80 TTA, that is applicable for deductions on savings bank interest, is allowed as deduction. How much? 10,000. Suppose I got 11,000 income, interest income, up to 10,000 it is deduction allowed, and maybe 1,000 is tax under that IFOS. 80 TTA, it is only with respect to interest on savings bank account, applicable for individual as well as HF. But for your info, last attempt, that means November, May 2019 attempt, there was an amendment that is 80 TTB. In Telugu, I used to say the memory code Tatagaru Bavunara, means it is applicable only for senior citizen. Generally, senior citizen will have only this kind of interest income. That is the reason up to 50,000 it is allowed as deduction. That to no TDS, because interest on savings bank account, no TDS itself. Okay, whatever the amount, even in 100 lakh or 10 lakh, interest on savings bank account, no TDS, for your info. Chalo. So here the point is, interest on savings bank account not subject to TDS, but it is taxed under the IFOS, but it is a deduction allowed under section 80 TTA for others, whereas TTB for senior citizen. So 80 TTA applicable for all SSCs being individual and HF other than senior citizen. But in case of others, 10,000 is the limit. In case of senior citizen, 50,000 is the limit. Okay, chalo. Next one, interest on FD, RD, that is fixed deposit or term deposit or recurring deposit or loans or advances covered under the head IFOS, but TDS obviously yes, under section 194A. Next one is interest on bonds, debentures, IFOS, that is separate provision is there, so 193 TDS provision is applicable. Next one, investment, what kind of investment income is also come under IFOS. So take it for granted, gross interest only taxable, net interest plus TDS is the gross amount. But I would like to add one point here. So many banks will deduct the TDS. If it is more than 10,000, generally they will deduct the TDS at the rate of 10% as per section 194A. At the time what happened, whatever the amount you have received is a net amount. So take it for granted, under Income Tax Act, always gross amount only taxable. Okay, chalo. Suppose I received not 1 lakh, I received only 90,000, but my gross amount is 1 lakh because TDS portion is 10,000. But even though they have deducted 10,000, take it for granted 1 lakh is only taxable under the IFOS. After computation of the tax, total tax, this amount of TDS will be allowed as deduction. Less TDS, this 10,000 will be allowed as deduction. Chalo. With this, we have done with the topic called as interest. Interest on savings bank, interest on current account, interest on FD, or interest like this. So many points are there. Take it for granted. Generally, interest income is generally taxable under the IFOS. No doubt. In some cases, it is taxable under the PGBP. Number one, whenever you made the deposit as part of business, for example, I wanted to take Hindustan Unilever, that is franchisee. For that purpose, I need to make cash and deposit. I need to make security deposit with them. So for that purpose, or whatever the interest they have paid, yes, that interest is not other sources interest. That is directly linked with the business. That is come under business or provision. See the word, investment made by the banking concern as part of business, their business, that is come under PGBP. Or else deposits made as part of regular business, that is come under PGBP. Or else whenever I am doing the business, loans given on loans given as well as interest collection, so my business itself lending business, at the time also it is come under PGBP. All other cases generally covered under the head IFOS. Chalo, this is the topic. See the word, interest income on award of arbitration should be trading receipts. Whenever arbitration, some disputes are there, arbitration we will go in the case of business issues. Yes, it is not IFOS, PGBP. And Tuticorin case law. So many friends asked me this point earlier. That is Supreme Court judgment. That is Tuticorin Alkali Cements and Fertilizers Limited. Very important case law. Follow. Interest income earned on deposits out of surplus fund before commencement of business. Friends, here surplus funds in the business itself, but whatever you have made before commencement of business is not come under the head PGBP. It is come under the head IFOS. Student doubt, why not PGBP? Answer, it is not linked with the business. Check clear properly. It is out of surplus funds before commencement of business is come under the head IFOS. Very famous case law, Tuticorin Alkali Cements Limited. Okay, chalo. Next one. Here one famous example section is there, that is exempted section, section 10 subsection 15. Very important. Interest on, we cannot remember entire all the points at a stage. That is the reason I would like to tell you the heading. Notified interest allowed as exemption for notified interest. What is that? National plan certificates and post office certificate, cash deposit, some things, and post office cash certificate and savings certificate, tax free bonds, interest on gold monetization. In 2016, demonetization of cash happened, right? On 2015, gold monetization happened. On the gold monetization bonds, whatever the interest you have received is also exempted under section 10 subsection 15. Okay, chalo. So this is the topic, section 10 subsection 15, that is interest on notified bonds is allowed as exemption under section 10 subsection 15. Chalo. Next one, MPs and MLAs. Okay, remuneration received by MPs and MLAs, whether taxable or not taxable, that is the question. Point number one, whatever the MPs and MLAs position, no, that is not employer and employee relationship. Whenever there is no employer and employee relationship, it is not covered under the head salary. Whenever there is a word salary, but there is no employer-employee relationship, obviously, whenever there is no such relation, not taxed under the salary, it may be taxed under the IFOS and no deductions. No deductions, and that's it. But one kind of allowances are exempted, that is daily allowance received by MPs and MLAs. Whenever assembly or parliament, they have to go for particular place, that is the reason they will get the salary. Now it is only exempted under section 10 subsection 17. For example, Roja, now she is a MLA, she participated in Jabardast as a judge. Now whatever the remuneration she has received is pakka taxable, because she is not participating in that program as a MLA, she is a participating in the program as a celebrity, that is other than MLA MP position, so it is taxable. And Sachin Tendulkar also, once upon a time when he was a MP, nominated MP Rajya Sabha, he acted as a commentator for certain matches. Yes, that commentator income is also, for your info, pakka taxable under the head, maybe PGBP, because it is his business. But whereas in this case, no, whereas MPs and MLAs, whatever the amount they have received, that is pakka taxable under the head IFOS, but no TDS. And I hope everybody who are watching these videos, they know, because of corona effect, no, MPs and MLA salaries have been reduced. Whatever the case, their salaries are covered under the head IFOS, and there is no TDS itself. Okay, because they are the lawmakers, there is no TDS. Next one, after examinations, what happened? No, now the teachers has to go for the evaluation of the papers. So examinership fees received by the non-employee from the non-employer is covered under that IFOS. Friends, generally whenever we are evaluating papers, that is a other kind of relation. There is no employer and employee relationship, so there is no question of tax liability, there is no question of income at all. Chalo. Next one, next topic, very important topic, it covered under the head salary as well as other sources. Okay, so complex topic we need to cover. Chalo. Now provident fund means future retirement benefits. Okay, what is that? Point number one, SPF. These are total four in number. SPF, statutory provident fund, applicable for government. RPF, applicable for non-government. URPF, non-government, but this is unrecognized. PPF, public provident fund, it is applicable for each and every person. In Telugu and Hindi it is known as Praja Bhavishya Nidhi. Okay, so applicable for each and every citizen. You and me, any person can open PPF account, but whereas SPF and RPF as well as URPF only applicable for employees. The two, SPF is applicable for government employees, whereas RPF and URPF applicable for non-government employees. The difference between R and RPF and URPF, don't say you, that is nothing but URPF is a unrecognized, because they have not satisfied certain condition. Earlier they have satisfied, subsequently they failed. Obviously government will withdraw their recognition. That is the reason it is called as unrecognized provident fund. Today's our topic is, now whatever the amount you have received from the SPF exempted. Whatever you have received from RPF exempted. Suppose if it is taxable under that salary. Whatever the amount you have received from PPF is also exempt. Then what about URPF? That is the question. Take it for granted, from URPF, once you retire or once you resign the job, at the time of death, they will get lump sum amount. The lump sum amount will consisting of four parts. One is employee contribution, one is on that portion interest, so interest on employee contribution. Next one, employer contribution. Next one, interest on employer contribution. Total four in number. Take it for granted. Now employee contribution not taxable. The reason, I only given out of my pocket, I only taken back. Then where is the question of income? I have given and I have taken back. No taxable, because no additional income I got. So I given 1 lakh, I received 1 lakh back. Where is the question of tax? But on that 1 lakh, I received some interest. Yes, interest on employee contribution. This is taxable under the head. Which head? Answer, it is taxable not under the head IF salary. It is taxable under the head IFOS. Students should get the doubt. Why it is taxable under that IFOS? That is a question. Answer as simple as that. There is no employer and employee relationship here. So for that interest portion, there is no employer and employee relationship. But whereas employer contribution and interest on employer contribution both are taxable under that salary, because employer-employee relationship is there. Now see the word lump sum amount received from ERPF. Number one, employee contribution not taxable. Interest on employee contribution, very important, taxable not under that salary, taxable under that IFOS. Next one, employer's contribution, whereas interest on employer contribution both are taxable as a salary head, as a profit in lieu of salary. Okay, chalo, but it is taxable on that salary. Very simple logic, man. Okay, no need to buy hard. Here no employer and employee relationship, because I only made deposit of 1 lakh. On that 1 lakh I got the interest from the provident fund. Then where is the question of employer and employee relationship? Okay, so taxable on that IFOS. Whereas in employer contribution and interest on employer contribution, not like that. The word clearly indicates that employer is there. So employer contribution, because I am an employee, so he contributed, we got the interest, so I got that income only because of my employer contribution. It is taxable on that salary chapter. Okay, chalo, with this done with the topic called as URPF, lump sum amount received from URPF. Out of that, interest portion is only taxable. Okay, under the head IFOS. Which interest portion? Interest on employee contribution. Chalo, next one, vacant land. Sometimes we will have vacant land, we will let out for cricket matches or for functions, whatever the case, or parking, we will let out. So rent received from vacant land or plot of land is taxable under the IFOS or PGBP. If it is regular, PGBP, otherwise IFOS. Okay, chalo. Next one, why not house property? Answer very simple, there is no house, only vacant land. Next one, underwriting commission received by the directors. Whatever the underwriters commission received is covered under that IFOS, because director IFOS. But employee director is there, that is executive, that is different story, that is taxable under that salary. Next one, interest on enhanced compensation. I don't know why your examiner asked this question n number of times. Very important question for IPCC and final itself, that is interest received on compensation or enhanced compensation with respect to compulsory acquisition. Okay, chalo, tell me first, compulsory acquisition of movable, immobile? Not movable. Movable means gold chain or something. You are going, suppose our friend Sai, she is going on the road. Now a sing officer wanted to pull back that one, or anyone wanted to, that is compulsory acquisition of movable asset. That is theft, yeah, that is illegal. Leave it. I'm talking about compulsory acquisition of immobile property is covered. What is that? I have taken the land or building for extension of road or for construction of some projects. At the time, we will pay compensation. Yes, that is covered under the head capital gains, because transfer of capital asset is there indirectly. But whereas we received interest on that, so interest received on compensation received or enhanced compensation received, yes, that interest amount is covered under the head salary chapter or house property chapter or PGBP or capital gain. Answer, nothing. That interest is taxable under the head IFOS. Income from the head other sources, and TDS also applicable, that is 194A. And whereas the compensation, no, the compensation is taxable under the head capital gains. Compensation is taxable under the head capital gains, and the two TDS applicable, yes or no? Yes, under section 194 LA. Okay, chalo. So 194 LA. So in Telugu you can remember like this, don't smile, that is nothing but what you call lakunnaru, 194 LA. So that is compulsory acquisition, normal compensation received capital gain, whereas interest on such compensation is covered under IFOS, it is covered under 194A. But wait, here deduction also will be allowed. As I told you earlier, section 57 deductions chapter. What is deduction section with respect to other sources? How much is the deduction? Answer, 50% will be allowed as deduction. Student, why? Friends, generally interest they will pay when there is a delay payment. Delay payment happened means sometimes we will go to court of law, so there are also many other expenses. So therefore answer is 50% of interest only allowed as deduction, means balance 50% is taxable. See the word compulsory acquisition of immovable property. Compensation, yes, taxable under that capital gain as a compulsory acquisition of capital asset. And TDS, yes, TDS also applicable under section 194 LA lakkunaru. Whereas next one, interest on compensation received, it is taxable under the IFOS. 50% interest only will be allowed as deduction, balance amount is taxable. Okay, chalo. Next one, important topic because it is linked with capital gain chapter. Follow, advance forfeited on failed negotiation for transfer of capital asset. I will tell you one example. Listen carefully. I want to buy one building, roadside building I want to buy for rupees 100 lakh, 1 crore. But today I have given money, how much, 20 lakh I have given. Means this is like advance only given, to one person, Sai. She, for her I have given 20 lakh rupees as a advance. Means balance 80 lakh I want to pay within 2 months. So after 2 months I will pay 80 lakh and I will get the property in my name registered. It is my plan. Okay, chalo. But unfortunately what happened, after payment of 20 lakh advance, next day corona spread happened. Whenever corona spread happened, everything has changed completely. Narendra Modi appeared on the what you call TV and he said Deswasi like this. Immediately 1 month gone for the lockdown. And after that again he came and said Deswasi. Even after that also 1 more month gone. So the rates are coming down. That to my financial position also changed. I am not interested to buy. Okay, so one day I went and I asked Sai, please return my amount back. Now do you think she will return the money? 100% she will not return. Okay, she will not refund the amount to me. Now see the word, advance money received and forfeited by that person on failure negotiation for transfer of capital asset. In this case, what is the answer? Answer is taxable under that IFOS. Recent provision IFOS. But for your info, once upon a time, on before 1/4/2014, before NDA government, before Narendra Modi government, first time Narendra Modi government, what happened? No, the provision is like this. It should not be taxed from that any head. It should be reduced from the cost of acquisition before indexation at the time of transfer. At the time of, in the year of transfer, that adjustment shall be made. But here one problem is there. Whenever you want to do that kind of adjustment, take it for granted. Here one loophole. What is a loophole? Suppose Sai, she received 20 lakh and this transaction for example happened in the year 1998. So she got 20 lakh. She kept quiet and she never transferred the asset to anyone after that. Until that means there is no actual transfer. Whenever there is no actual transfer, there is no question of tax. Correct? Chalo. Whereas this is a loophole. That is the reason when Narendra Modi government came into power, now they wanted to unplug one by one loophole. Now here one of the loophole, that is nothing but this amount is taxable under IFOS in the year of forfeiture of advance money. In the year in which you wanted to forfeit the advance money, that year only taxable. Suppose now I told you corona, that case 2020, right? So it is taxable in the year of 2020 itself, even though you have not transferred the asset, even though the sale transaction has been cancelled. The reason as simple as that. Now whenever there is a transfer of capital asset, then only capital gain chapter shall apply. But here there is no transfer of capital asset. The transfer of capital asset has been cancelled because of failure negotiation. Therefore whatever the advance money received by the person is pakka taxable under the head IFOS. Okay, chalo, don't confuse. Compulsory acquisition is different and advance money received on forfeiture is also different. Okay, chalo, that's it. Next, very important concept, very important. Premium on issue of shares by closely held company in certain cases. I would like to tell you one thing. Okay, Mukesh Ambani recently, I hope last 2-3 days back, is keep on selling his shares. Geo percentage 10% of shares he sold to that Facebook itself, and recently also second time also is disposing. Okay, chalo. So anyhow, that is a public company, that is not an issue, leave it. I'm talking about closely held company. What is widely held, what is closely held, it is not the right time to discuss. We will discuss in other chapter. Okay, as of now remember, closely held company means private company. Okay, correct? Yes, but not exactly. Some more points are there. Unlisted company, unlisted public company. Okay, like this some more points are there. Chalo, anyhow, premium on issue of shares by closely held company. What is that? We can check. Number one, follow the point as simple as that. Number one, premium on issue of shares by closely held company in certain situations. Now, one company is there, that is XYZ Private Limited. Whenever it is a XYZ Private Limited, they issued shares, issue price. First one, let us check face value. Face value of share is 10 rupees or 100 rupees. But issue price is nothing but 140 rupees. Okay, but market price prevailing in the market is 130 rupees. Then what would be the answer? Answer as simple as that. Whenever issue price is greater than the face value, then it is said to be issued at a premium. I repeat, issued at a premium. But whenever your issue price is greater than the market value, that amount only taxable. Now see the word company not being a company in which public has not substantially interested. That means that is a closely held or widely held? Closely held company. Receives consideration for issue of shares exceeding the face value of such shares. I repeat, they issued a shares. Friends, in the following case, if the closely held company issued a shares at a premium, in that case, the differential amount between issue price and market price is only taxable. Now see the point once again. Taxable amount is as follows. How much is the aggregate consideration so far we received? If it is greater than the fair market value, the differential amount is only taxable. Now, shares issued at a premium. How do we know shares issued at a premium? If issue price is greater than the face value. Okay. How much is taxable? You know, issue price is greater than the market value, then only it is taxable. I will take different illustration for this. Now, company A Limited is there. Face value let us say 100 rupees and issue price let us say 150 and market value let us say 170. Now, number one, whether it is issued at a premium or not. Answer, I don't know. We need to check. If issue price is greater than the, I repeat, issue price is greater than the fair market value, face value, yes, then we can say the shares are issued at a premium. So yes, premium. But how much is taxable? You know, the differential between market price and issue price is only taxable. This is 170, this is 150, total 20 rupees into number of shares is only taxable. Okay, chalo. Next one, another example, B Limited. In case of B Limited, for your info friends, face value let us say 100, issue price let us say 90, and whereas market value 120. Now see this one. Whereas face value 100, but I issued at a 90. Sorry, there is no premium at all. When there is no premium, automatically this provision not applicable. Okay, even though your market price is, the share market price is greater than the issue price, nothing is taxable because the first criteria has not satisfied. Okay, so we need to check two things, whether issued at premium or not. If so, how much is taxable? Okay, I will take another example. Now that is C Limited is there. Now that is face value 100, whereas issue price is 120, whereas market price is 110. Okay, whether it is issued at premium or not? Yes, the reason is issue price is greater than the face value. But tell me, how much is taxable? Answer, market price is not greater than the issue price, so that is the reason nothing is taxable. So conclusion, two conditions simultaneously must satisfy. Condition number one, the shares must be issued at a premium. Condition number two, the shares market value must be more than the issue price, then only it is taxable. Okay, but this provision is only applicable for closely held company. I will take another example. Reliance Industry issued shares face value 100 shares at a 150 they issued, but whereas market value is only 110. How much is taxable? Nothing is taxable. The reason, Reliance Industry is a listed company. For listed company, it is not applicable because all listed companies are widely held company. Okay, chalo. Friends, this provision is only applicable for closely held company. The two, only closely held company where the shares are issued at a premium, then only it is applicable. Otherwise, this provision is not at all applicable. Okay, chalo. But exception is there. The exception is as follows. But exception, the above provision shall not apply to, that is venture capitalist. For your info, in your FM, you have covered the topic venture capitalist. Friends, venture capitalists will undertake risky projects. The two, sometimes they may get the profit, sometimes they may get the loss. But that too, they will encourage so many startups. In India, so many startups are funded by this kind of companies, venture capitalists. So, in case of venture capitalists, obviously the shares are issued at a heavy premium. Now see the word, the above provision shall not applicable where the consideration for issue of shares is received by venture capital undertaking from a venture capital company, or venture capital fund, or any company from a class of persons as may be notified by the central government. So if the shares are issued by the venture capital undertaking from a venture capital fund, in that case this kind of provisions are not at all applicable, because they are taking the high risk. Whenever they are doing high risk, they will issue at a heavy premium. That kind of amount is not at all taxable. So this is the exception as far as this provision is concerned. So be careful, this is very important provision. Here especially student will have confusion. When it is taxable, how much is taxable? Friends, when it is taxable, you know, if the face value of the share is different, issue price is different, market price is different. If the face value of the price is 100 rupees and issue price is 120, yes, I can say 20 rupees is the premium, but 20 rupees is not taxable. Then how much is taxable? You know, the differential between market price as well as, I repeat, the differential between market price and issue price is only taxable. Chalo, with this we have done with that provision, particular provision. This is very important provision for exam point of view. Number of times they asked in the exam, whether IPCC or final, they have asked the question, but this concept is not applicable for widely held company. Now we can check what is the fair market value, how to check the fair market value of the company. Friends, fair market value of the company shares are as follows. We need to check higher of the following. The first one, value determined as per the prescribed method. Okay, number one. Number two, the value substantiated by a company to the satisfaction of the assessing officer based on value as on the date of issue of shares. And the two, on the date of issue of shares, what is the asset value based on that. Now assessing officer to his satisfaction, whatever the value you have computed, or any other prescribed method, whichever is higher only we need to take into as a fair market value of the company shares. Okay, chalo. But one thing for sure, if the shares are issued at a premium by closed held company, it is taxable. How much is taxable? No, issue price minus market value. That too, if the shares are issued at a premium by the widely held company, nothing is taxable. Okay, not at all taxable. Friends, now we are going to cover the next very important topic for exam point of view. Number of times they asked in IPCC as well as final also. This topic is called as gift. Okay, chalo. This topic is very important for exam, that is gift. Friends, gift we can classify into three types. Number one, cash. Number two, movable asset. Number last is the immovable asset. So one is cash, one is movable, one is immovable. Let's start the discussion with respect to cash. As far as cash is concerned, whether it is taxable or not taxable, that is the question. Ready? Start. Number one. Now, sum or aggregate of sum received by all assessees in excess of 50,000 during the previous year, the aggregate value of sum is taxable. For that purpose, I will take one illustration. Follow. Today our friend Sai, her birthday. For that purpose, 4 members attended her birthday party, A and B and C as well as D. Now for your info, A has given 10 rupees cash, B has given 20 rupees cash, C has given 30 rupees cash. Now D has given 40 rupees cash. So 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40. Now friends, this is nothing but 100 rupees. Whenever you have received 100 rupees cash, nothing is taxable. In income tax, don't think everything is taxable. Certain things are not taxable under Income Tax Act. So whatever the gift you received is not taxable. But one thing for sure, if you receive the gift, that too the gift is more than 50,000, yes, at that time entire gift is taxable. I repeat, entire amount is taxable. I will take illustration for this. For Sai birthday, A has given 1,000 rupees, Mr. B has given 20,000 rupees, whereas C has given 30,000 rupees, and whereas Sai has given D has given 40 rupees to Sai. Now I want to check whether it is taxable or not. For that purpose, you have to see the provision. Number one, sum. Single payment is known as sum, whereas aggregate of sum. So number of payments if you receive, we need to make the total. Received by all assessees. Once upon a time, long ago, it was individual and HUF. Nowadays, not like that. Individual HUF company, whatever the person they have received in excess of 50,000 during the year, then aggregate value of this gift is taxable. So in this case, first one is 1,000, second one is 20,000 rupees, third one is 30,000 rupees, next is the 40 rupees. Now total it is 51,040 rupees. Whenever it is 51,040 rupees, it is more than 50,000. Therefore, the entire value of gift is taxable. So, the aggregate value of gift is taxable. So, conclusion ma, in case of cash, sum or aggregate of sum received by all associates in excess of 50,000, the entire sum is taxable. I never told you excess amount is taxable. I am telling you entire amount is taxable. This is very important point with respect to cash gift is concerned. Okay, chalo. Next, very another important topic is movable asset as well as immovable asset. Let me start the discussion with the immovable asset. Immovable property. Friends, immovable property means land or building or part of land or part of the building. Whatever the case, immovable properties are covered. Okay, chalo. In case of immovable property, the provision is as follows. First, we have to check with consideration or without consideration. Okay. First, let me start the example with without consideration. Without consideration. Okay. See the provision carefully. Stamp duty value. SDV means stamp duty value. For your info, every immovable property will have one stamp duty value. Friends, stamp duty is a state subject. In every state, one department is there, that is revenue department. Every state, there is one office called as registration office, registrar office, sub-registrar office. In India, I can buy the property anywhere in India. Once upon a time, I cannot buy in the place called as Jammu and Kashmir. Now, we can buy property in Jammu and Kashmir also, for your info. So, in every area, there is a immovable property will have one registration value, that is called as state stamp duty value. Okay, state registration value called as SDV, stamp duty value. Stamp duty value of immovable property received by all SSC without consideration. If the stamp duty value is greater than 50,000, then the entire sum is taxable. Like this, each transaction must be verified specifically. So don't worry, I will take illustration here. Follow. Now our friend Sai birthday. For that purpose, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, Mr. D, 4 members attended our birthday party. For that purpose, Sai received one land from A. Okay, so Sai received a building from B, and Sai received another land from C, and Sai received another building from the D. Okay, so no other option. I have to take either land or building. That's it. Chalo. In this case, what we need to do, on her birthday occasion, birthday party occasion, she received the following gifts from the various friends. Ready? Start. First one, Sai versus A, we need to check. Now, the land received by Sai from A, let us say the land value, market value, sorry, not relevant. Purchase value, not relevant. Then which value relevant? Stamp duty value. I need to ask sub-registrar, Master, how much is the land stamp duty value? I need to ask. Now, the stamp duty value as on the date of transaction, let us say 10,000 rupees. Answer, sorry, it is not taxable. The reason is, now stamp duty value exceeds 50,000, then only entire amount is taxable. Okay, chalo. This is after all 10,000, so less than 50,000, so not taxable. Okay, na? Chalo. Second example, Sai versus B. Okay. In that example, now Sai received building from Mr. B, where the value of the particular building is exactly 50,000. Answer, sorry, it is also not taxable. Why it is not taxable? No, it does not exceeds 50,000. After all, it is 50,000, therefore not taxable. Okay, so land received from Mr. A not taxable, building received from Mr. B also not taxable. And one more thing I would like to tell you, don't make the total, don't do aggregate. The reason, in cash I need to do aggregate, but in immovable property I need to take transaction by transaction separately. Each and every transaction is independent transaction, so I need to take care of each and every transaction separately. Let's start. Third example, Sai received land from the Mr. C, where the land stamp duty value, let us say 49,000. Answer, not taxable. Okay, chalo. And Sai received building from Mr. D. Now the land or the building particular value is 55,000. Friends, tell me, whenever it is 55,000, the stamp duty value is greater than the normal, that is 50,000 limit. Whenever it is exceeding 50,000, yes, then the entire amount is taxable. That means the 55,000 is only taxable. Okay, chalo. Now I request you everyone follow the illustration. Stamp duty value of immovable property received by all assessees without consideration. I repeat, without consideration, stamp duty value exceeds 50,000, then the entire stamp duty value of the property is taxable. Each transaction must be verified separately. Each and every transaction must be considered separately. Okay. Next one. Suppose inadequate consideration. Any immovable property you have received, inadequate consideration means the consideration whatever we have received is not at par with the actual price. Now in that case, that is known as inadequate consideration. Some students, if this class heard by one engineering student, then he will have doubt. Generally gift means no consideration. No, why you are telling inadequate consideration? That maybe is doubt. I'm telling you, in this case here, without consideration is covered as well as with inadequate consideration also covered. I will take different illustration for this. Be carefully follow, because this is a very important topic, very important, especially immovable property, because it is affected by another provision called as capital gains topic, that is section number 50 capital C. That topic also relevant. So be careful and participate everybody in the discussion. I request you all, I will take n number of examples, so please participate. Now our friend Sai birthday. For that purpose, A attended birthday party. He has given one land. Okay, fine. The land stamp duty value is exactly 90,000 rupees. Chalo, that's it. Answer. This is with or without consideration. Answer, without consideration. Whenever it is without consideration, whatever the gift received by Sai being immovable property, if it is more than 50,000, then entire amount is taxable. Yes. Answer, 90,000 is taxable. Okay na? Fine. Next question. Another example. Today Sai birthday. For that purpose, she has received another gift from Mr. B. For that purpose, Sai has received the gift stamp duty value is, let us say, 1 lakh rupees. Okay, but what happened? No, now Sai has given consideration money she has paid to Mr. B, like let us say 99,000 she paid. So friends, after all, I have paid 99,000 rupees. I have paid. That means for this gift there is a consideration, but in return I have received 1 lakh worth of gift. Ready? Start. Tell me. In this second example, B example, whether it is a without consideration or with consideration. Yes, correct. This is with consideration. That too, the differential amount does not exceed 50,000 rupees. Therefore, this is not taxable. I repeat, not taxable, because the provision is like this in case of inadequate consideration. See this one. The difference between stamp duty value minus consideration. In my earlier example, stamp duty value 1 lakh. Consideration is 99,000. So that means 1,000. Exceeds 50? No, does not exceed 50. Therefore, it is not at all taxable. Okay. The point number 1, the differential amount should exceed 50,000 rupees. That is condition number 1. And here another condition is there. This condition, once upon a time, this such kind of conditions are not there. Latest conditions, that is stamp duty value exceeds 105% of the consideration. I will take another complete example for this so that you can understand the topic better. Okay, chalo, ready, start. Now another example ma, I'm changing the color also for this. Now you can understand better. Now our friend Sai birthday. For that purpose, what happened? No, now another person C attended birthday party. For that purpose, now she received land. She got the gift, that is land. For that purpose, stamp duty value we inquired. The stamp duty value we came to know that is exactly 90,000 rupees. Okay, or else let us say 1 lakh rupee. 1 lakh, exactly 1 lakh. But what happened? No, she paid the consideration. How much consideration she paid? You know, she paid the consideration of rupees 10,000. Okay, chalo. Friends, after all, 1 lakh worth of asset you bought or you got at a cost of 10,000 means this is nothing but inadequate consideration. In this case, condition number 1 and 2, you have to check two conditions. Friends, in case of immovable property, if the immovable property is transferred for an inadequate consideration, or else if it is gifted for an inadequate consideration, in that case, if the difference between stamp duty value minus consideration exceeds 50,000 rupees and the stamp duty value is greater than 105% of the consideration, in that case, the difference between stamp duty value minus consideration is taxable. Don't worry, I will take one illustration for this. I need your participation, everyone. Our friend Sai birthday. For her birthday, A and B, like this, so many people attended her birthday party. After that, A has given one land to Sai. The land stamp duty value, let us say 45,000 rupees. Answer, nothing is taxable because it is without consideration. That too, stamp duty value does not exceed 50,000, so nothing is taxable. Correct now? Yes. Next point. Suppose the gifted property value is 1,45,000. Obviously, it is more than 50,000, so the entire amount of gift is fully taxable. That means here 1,45,000 is taxable because it is more than 50,000, so fully taxable. Correct now? Fine. Now our next point is as follows. Very, very important point. Follow. Sai birthday. For her birthday, now Mr. B attended her birthday party and has given one building to Sai. For that purpose, now Sai has taken this building where the stamp duty value of the particular property, she came to know the property value is, let us say, 1 lakh rupees. But what happened? She only paid the consideration, so that is 10,000 rupees. I repeat, the consideration paid is 10,000 rupees. Whether it is taxable or not taxable, that is the question. Answer, for that purpose, I need to correlate this example with respect to provision. Follow. Here, see the information. The difference between stamp duty value minus consideration exceeds 50,000. Whether it is the same or not, I need to check up. Answer, yes. Now stamp duty value, that is nothing but 1 lakh minus, whereas the consideration is nothing but 10,000. Yes ma, the differential amount is 90,000 rupees, so first condition has been satisfied. So if the difference between stamp duty value minus consideration exceeds 50,000, and one more condition is there, second condition. Friends, this is two conditions must be satisfied. Okay, what are the second condition? Second condition is as follows. The stamp duty value must exceeds 105% of the consideration. I repeat, the stamp duty value must be more than 105% of the consideration. In my example, stamp duty value, let us say 1 lakh, whereas consideration is 10,000. 10,000 into 105%. Obviously, that is more than, the 1 lakh is more than this amount. Obviously 10,500. So whenever it is more than the 105% of consideration, both the conditions are satisfied. In that case, the difference between stamp duty value and consideration, whatever the net benefit you have received, that only taxable. Here I received for 1 lakh rupees, I have paid 10,000. So ultimately my benefit in my hands is 90,000. So 90,000 is only taxable as a gift. Okay na? Chalo. I wanted to tell the provision again. The difference between stamp duty value minus consideration exceeds 50,000, as well as the stamp duty value exceeds 105% of the consideration. In such case, stamp duty value minus consideration altogether, it is taxable. Okay na? Chalo. Next one. Friends, stamp duty value keep on fluctuating year to year or depend upon the particular period. Purely government decision. Which government? You know, state government decision. State government will take the decisions like this. Whenever the market is high, so they also try to increase the stamp duty value generally. Okay, so when the stamp duty value as on the date of agreement and stamp duty value as on the date of registration is different, in that case, what is the answer? See the provision ma. The date of stamp duty value as on the date of agreement may be taken if stamp duty value as on the date of agreement and stamp duty value as on the date of registration is not the same. In this case, what we can need to consider? See the word consideration or part thereof has been paid by any mode other than cash, that too on or before date for agreement. Stop. Friends, now another point is there. The point is as follows. Stamp duty value as on the date of agreement. Stamp duty value as on the date of agreement. And next one, stamp duty value as on the date of registration. As on the date of registration is different. I repeat, is not same, is different. In this case, what to do? Answer, in that case, stamp duty value prevailing as on the date of agreement only can be considered, provided only one and only condition. The condition is as follows. The consideration or part of the consideration must be paid other than cash. I repeat, other than cash, that too on or before date of agreement. So it is paid by consideration, whatever the consideration you paid, whether fully or partly, other than cash, in that case, the stamp duty value prevailing as on the date of agreement must be considered. Don't worry, for this I will take one simple illustration. Follow. Same example ma, Sai birthday purpose, Mr. B attended her birthday party and he has given one land to A. Now, whereas the stamp duty value of the land, let us say 1 lakh rupees, the land is given to Sai exactly on date of agreement is on 1st February 2020, the day that agreement has ended. Agreement is like this: Sai, for your birthday I am giving this land, whereas the stamp duty value 1 lakh, but pay the consideration to me, now that is 10,000 itself. For that purpose, Sai paid 10,000 as per this agreement. Okay, chalo. But the registration they wanted to keep after 1 month. Exactly on 1st March 2020, what happened? They wanted to register in the name of Sai. So this is the date of registration. But unfortunately, what happened? Stamp duty value as on 1 March 2020, Mr. KCR or Mr. Jagan or someone else has increased it to, that is 1,50,000. Now anybody in the class, now point is stamp duty value is most relevant in the case of gifter. Now the point is which stamp duty value we need to consider, stamp duty value as on the date of agreement or stamp duty value as on the date of registration. Generally, which one I need to take? Answer, generally you have to take which is beneficial. What is beneficial? Stamp duty value as on the date of agreement must be considered, provided two conditions. Condition number 1, the consideration paid maybe fully or partly, that is one point, and that must be paid other than cash. You must pay by account pay transfer or account pay check or anything you can do. Account pay transfer you can do, that means account pay check or account pay draft, or else you can do ECS, electronic clearance system, or else any kind of electronic remittance also you can do, but not in the form of cash, because in case of cash payment it is very difficult to make audit trail. So there must be other than cash transaction. That too you have to pay on or before this the date of agreement, whether 1 day before or 1 month before immaterial, or on the date of agreement. In that case, the stamp duty value prevailing as on the date of agreement must be considered. Okay, chalo. For this I will take one illustration, everyone in the class. Stamp duty value as on the date of agreement may be taken up, provided see the point everyone, date of agreement fixing the amount of consideration for transfer of immovable property and the date of registration are not the same. Stamp duty value is not the same. In this case, consideration or part thereof has been paid by any mode other than cash on or before date of agreement for the transfer of such property shall be taken up. Okay, chalo. So in case of, last time I am repeating, stamp duty value as on the date of agreement, stamp duty value as on the date of registration, if both are different, then the stamp duty value prevailing as on the date of agreement must be considered, provided that consideration whether fully or partly may be paid by way of other than cash. Okay, chalo. If it is the case, then only we can take stamp duty value as on the date of agreement. If not, I need to take obviously stamp duty value as on the date of registration. Fine. With this, we have done with the topic gift cash as well as gift immovable property. Correct now? Chalo. Now it is the last part is called as gift, that is movable property. So I'm going to start the topic movable property. In case of movable property, what is the answer? Friends, movable property means portable from one place to another place. So physically I can move from one place to another place, that is movable. But here for your info, every movable property is not covered, only capital asset only covered. For example, for your birthday I have given calculator. Sorry, it is not a capital asset. For your birthday I have given bike. It is not a capital asset. It is not transfer. It is not at all taxable for your info. So movable asset here includes only capital asset. Only capital asset. Every movable asset is not covered. So see the provision. For your birthday or any occasion, if you receive the gift, what would be the answer? See the word fair market value. Yes. In case of cash, we need to consider cash. In case of immovable property, I need to take stamp duty value. In case of movable property, I need to take fair market value. So fair market value or aggregate fair market value of the movable asset received by all SSCs, all individual, HEF, company, whatnot, every SC. without consideration or with inadequate consideration. So 0 consideration or else very less consideration. In that case, the aggregate fair market value minus consideration exceeds 50,000, then the excess exceeds 50,000, then that entire amount is taxable. So don't worry, I will take one illustration for this. Okay, chalo. Now our friend Chandra is birthday. For this purpose, Mr. A attended his birthday party. For that purpose, he has given one gift, gold chain. Okay, chalo. Gold chain, the worth of fair market value is 70,000 rupees. And Mr. B, he also attended birthday party. He has given one gold ring. The gold ring worth is 20,000 rupees. And Mr. C also attended birthday party where he has given one gold bracelet. For that purpose, that fair market value is 10,000 rupees. And after that, another person, Mr. D, also attended birthday party. He has given one gold ring where the cost of the gold ring is 10,000 rupees. But in return, Chandra has given to him is 5,000 rupees. Okay, chalo. This is the exam question. I want to solve the question. Point number 1. Gold chains, all are capital asset or not? Yes, capital asset. Then only it is covered. Then what you have to do? Single transaction means you have to take FMV. Multiple transaction means you have to do aggregate. So aggregate word I need to consider, because here in case of movable asset or in case of cash, the word aggregate word is there, whereas in case of immovable property, aggregate word is not there. Therefore, in case of gift being immovable property, I need to check transaction to transaction, whereas in case of movable property, I need to take the sum of all the transaction we need to consider. Okay, chalo, ready, start. Here this is without consideration, so 70,000 is the gift value, take it. Next one, gold ring 20,000, that is also without consideration, take it. Next one, bracelet 10,000 without consideration, take it. Very good. Next one, gold ring, that is 30,000 rupees, whereas 5,000 is the consideration. Friends, this is known as with inadequate consideration, that also I can take it. So here now the gross amount is 30,000, but whereas my consideration whatever I paid is 5,000. So make the total, everybody. This is 30, that is total is 1,30,000, whereas my consideration is 5,000. Now tell me, everybody in the class, now the fair market value minus consideration, that is 130 minus 5,000, that is 1,25,000. So tell me, 1,25,000 is more than 50,000 or not? Yes. In that case, the entire 1,25,000 is taxable. Okay, chalo. So this is the topic called as gift being movable asset. Only movable asset, the two only capital asset only covered. Okay, chalo. One more time I would like to tell the provision. In case of movable asset being capital asset, that is fair market value or aggregate fair market value of the movable asset received by all assessees without consideration or with inadequate consideration. In that case, the aggregate FMV minus consideration exceeds 50,000, then the portion of aggregate FMV minus consideration is taxable. But this condition is not applicable for other than capital asset, only applicable only for the capital asset. Chalo. But for your info, here some exceptions are there. In the following cases, gift is not taxable. Friends, now we can check the topic exceptions for the gift. This is very important point, follow. The gift received from the following persons in the following cases or in the following situations, it is fully exempted. No question of taxability at all. Now point number 1, gift received from a relative. Now here relative definition we need to check. First one is your wife or your husband, that is spouse. Second one is your brother and sister. So you are individual Mr. X. So then your brother as well as your sister. Next one is brother and sister of your spouse. So your wife's brother and sister also covered. Okay, chalo. And next one is your parents are there, right? For your parents, I repeat, individual parents. Individual parents, either a brother as well as sisters only covered. Okay, so that means your father's brother and father's sister as well as your mother's brother as well as mother's sister also covered. But for your info, this point is not applicable for your spouse. So brother and sister of either a parents of individual only covered. Next one is lineal ascendant and lineal descendant, that is next generation and past generations all are covered. So lineal ascendant and descendant of you as well as lineal ascendant and descendant of spouse of the individual. And again the above said persons B to A, I repeat, the B to F, these persons spouses also covered. So that means your brother's wife and your sister's husband, like this all the members are covered. So for more clarity purpose, I will take line diagram. Here our SC, let us assume Mr. X. Then the relatives are as follows. Follow the relative number 1. First one is your wife. That means Mrs. X. Okay, chalo. Number 1 it is our class A. Next one class B is as follows. Your bro and your sister. So your brother and sister. Number B. Number next C. Point number C is as follows. Brother and sister of your spouse. Okay, chalo. Next number is your parents, right? So your parents, brother and sister. So your father as well as your mother. So your father's brother and sister and your mother's brother and sister also covered. After that, lineal descendant and lineal ascendant, and lineal descendant and lineal ascendant also covered. And next one is now spouse of the above referred persons also covered. Okay, so these persons spouse is also covered. So this is the relative definition. Whatever the occasion, if you receive the gift from your relatives, take it for granted it is fully exempted. But in exam hall, many number of times they asked the question. The point is as follows. Gift received from the grandfather, exempt obviously because it is a your relative, because lineal ascendant. But gift received from the cousin of the grandfather, that is pakka taxable, because cousin of your grandfather is not your relative. Okay, chalo. So next point is as follows. Second, number 2, on occasion of marriage. So at the time of marriage, whatever the gift you have received, that is also not taxable. Okay, whatever the gift you received at the time of marriage from your relative or non-relative, that is also not at all taxable. Okay, chalo. And gift received by way of will, that is will nama not taxable. By way of inheritance also not taxable. So someone else will write the will, not taxable. Anybody can write the will in the name of anyone, so not taxable. Next one, inheritance. Whenever Mr. Rajiv Gandhi died, the properties goes to Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, that is inheritance. In that case also not taxable. Next one, in contemplation of death of a payer or donor. So in anticipation of death, if any person has written the by way of gift, not taxable. Next one, from any fund or charitable trust, gift received from the charitable trust is also not taxable. Next one, by way of transaction which is not regarded as a transfer, under section 47 also not taxable. So 47 in capital gain chapter we will come to know that is not a transfer. That means section 47 not a transfer, no capital gain applicable. In case of some amalgamation and demerger cases, it is also not taxable. And next one, gift received from the charitable trust and hospital, educational institution and municipality, local authority, all the things are covered. In all the cases, not at all taxable. Okay, chalo. So these are the exceptions. In the following cases, whatever the gift you have received, the gift amount is not at all taxable. Okay, chalo. Gift amount is most important topic for exam point of view. Take care. Friends, next topic. We are continuing charging section. Gift is over right now. We are going for next point. Any important point it is because amendment. So 1 year back this amendment is came into picture. Any compensation received by any person, whatever name called, in connection of termination of employment or modification of terms of employment is taxable under the IFOS, whether it is revenue or capital. Okay, chalo. I will take one illustration here. I request you all participate in the discussion. Live example. So name, one company is called as Kipro. Okay, I hope you know the point. Now in Kipro company, one person, Mr. X, now he completed his BTech in one college, CBIT college, Happy Days. After that, what happened? In the 3rd year ending itself, he got the job, campus placement he got in the company called as Wipro, Bengaluru. But what happened? Because of corona effect or some reasons, after the post corona, government realized, that company realized that it is not viable to take up the new employees. For that purpose, they terminated that appointment letter. So they cancelled that appointment letter and they given 50,000 rupees cash as a compensation or as a encouragement, whatever the name. So names are not relevant. Names are not important. Nomenclature is not relevant here. See the word. Any compensation received by any person by whatever the name called in connection of termination of employment. So closure of the job or termination of employment or modification of terms of employment is covered under the head other sources. Fun for your info, once upon a time this kind of amount is not taxable. Once upon a time, the reason there is no employer and employee relationship, the person has not taken the job, he never entered into the office itself, but that is has been cancelled. In that case, that particular consideration whatever you have received is covered under the head other sources. This is the amendment, but that may be revenue or capital. In my example, the 50,000 is a capital, that is one time payment. Generally capital receipts are not taxable, obviously not taxable. In that case, government of India wanted to bring into tax bracket. For that purpose they introduced this concept, at the time of termination of employment or a termination of conditions or modification of terms of employment, now either revenue or capital, whatever the amount you have received is taxable under the head IFOS. Generally it is a salary chapter not applicable here, because actually employer and employee relationship not yet started. That is the reason it is covered under the head IFOS. Next one, another point, Keyman insurance policy. Friends, in fact this topic is covered under three heads. One is salary chapter, PGBP chapter and other sources. Keyman insurance policy, that is received by the employee from the organization, it is taxed under that salary. If he is a owner, then obviously if we receive Keyman insurance policy, it is come under PGBP. If he is third party, it is come under IFOS. So whatever the Keyman insurance policy received is taxable, but under which head it is taxable, it depends upon the payee. If the payee is an employee, answer salary head. If the payee is a owner, promoter or proprietor, that is PGBP. If the payee is a other party, that is other sources. It is not exempted under section 10(10)(d). It is never ever exempted. Whenever not exempted, it is pakka taxable under section 194(da). I repeat, section 194(da) subject to TDS. So this is the topic called as Keyman insurance policy. So general insurance policy may be exempted, but Keyman insurance policy is pakka taxable. Okay, chalo. Next one, composite rent. For this, I will take one illustration. Follow. The rent meant for let out of building as well as other amenities. For example, post-corona, one cinema hall unable to run the show, or one person unable to run this business. That is the reason he wanted to let out the building. If you let out the building, come under the head house property. But what he decided, he wanted to let out the building as well as furniture as well as plant and machinery all together. He wanted to let out for a lump sum consideration. Then that is called as composite rent. Composite rent is a rent which comprising two parts. One is a house property part. Second one is called as building and other amenities purpose. That is AC or geyser or else a generator, whatever the thing. If you have given, that is come under composite rent. Generally that is come under furnished flat, etc. Now in this case, what would be the answer? For example, now I let out my building with furniture to someone else, with plant and machinery and everything, including my car also I let out. At that time, I received the lump sum consideration of 12 lakh rupees per annum. Out of 12 lakh, how much is for building, how much is for other amenities, I don't know. Whenever I don't know, that is inseparable. Whenever inseparable, it is covered under the head IFOS or PGBP. 100% it is not come under the head house property. Maybe IFOS or maybe PGBP. The reason is that amount is inseparable. Inseparable, cannot separate. Okay, chalo. Next one, separable in some cases. What is the meaning of separable? Separable means, I told you I let out my building with furniture as well as plant and machinery as well as my car and generator, everything. At that time, I received 12 lakh rupees as a rent. In this case, out of 12 lakh, 10 lakh is for building and 2 lakh for the other amenities. Yes, it is separable. So whenever it is separable, house rent is covered under the head house property, other rent is covered under the head IFOS and PGBP. So this is the topic called as composite rent. Take it for granted, only house property if you know house property chapter. Any other thing is covered under IFOS or PGBP. If you know regular basis, if you are doing PGBP, occasionally if you do, that is other sources. If it is inseparable, no need to discuss. 100% it is IFOS and PGBP, because I don't know exact rent for the building, I don't know. Chalo, with this, done with the topic called as composite rent. Okay friends, with this we have completed the charging section, section number 56. So many income items we have covered which are taxable under the head IFOS. Okay chalo, now it is time for section number 57, admissible expenditure. So the deduction will be allowed. So no doubt whenever I have income, obviously I will have the related expenditure. Yes, that related expenditure, whether allowed or not allowed, we are going to cover. Now first I would like to cover section 56 over. Now section 57, that is admissible expenditure. Once it is get over, I will go for 58, expenditure which is not allowed as deduction. Chalo, let me start the topic. Section 57, admissible expenditure. The following expenses are allowed as deduction. Answer number 1, any reasonable sum allowed. I repeat, any reasonable sum allowed, like commission or any remuneration for the purpose of realizing dividend or interest on security, anything is allowed. For example, I have debentures. On the debentures, I got the interest. For that purpose, I went to bank, and by paying bank charges, I got the some interest amount back. Now that means commission I paid to the banker, or else I appointed one person to go and bring it. So remuneration paid. So any commission or any remuneration which is reasonable sum paid, that will be allowed as deduction. So point number 1, any relevant reasonable expenditure also allowed. Okay, chalo, next one. Now that is contribution to ESI or EPF or superannuation fund, or which are recovered from the employees and paid before due date specified under relevant acts, that also allowed. So be careful, please follow. Point number 1, let out of plant and machinery. In some cases it is come under PGBB, some cases other sources. Friends, whenever it is PGBB, answer would have been different because it is covered under section 30 to 37, because P&L debits 30 to 37 expenses are covered. But if it is other sources, it is covered under the topic called as section number 57. So what is this? Follow. Any contribution to ESI, employee state insurance, or EPF, employee provident fund, or superannuation fund or pension fund, which are recovered from the employees and paid to the organizations, that is EPF and all, paid on or before due date specified in the relevant act, that will be allowed as deduction. So it is also allowed as deduction. Friends, same terminology, same provision you have covered under the head PGBP also. The reason is, in PGBP replica provisions are also there in other sources. The reason as simple as that, sometimes same income tax under that PGBP, if not there, covered under the head IFOS. So that is the reason similar provision is there. If any particular income is covered under the head other sources, if you pay any commission or any amount, or else if you contribute any amount to ESI or EPF etc., which are recovered from the employees, is also allowed as deduction. Next one, repairs and insurance, buildings etc. I told you composite rent. In case of composite rent, suppose if it is the rent inseparable, obviously covered under that IFOS. Just now we covered. So any repairs or any insurance or depreciation of the building and plant and machine and furniture and features, that is also allowed as deduction under the head other sources. Some people may get that out. Sir, same provision is there in the PGBP. Yes, I told you no, this is the replica of the PGBP as well as other sources for your info. So if any income taxable there, okay, deduction also allowed under the head PGBP. If any income is taxable under that other sources, then obviously the corresponding repairs or insurance or depreciation also will be allowed under the head IFOS. Next one, family pension. Already we have covered. Whenever you heard the word family pension, that means the pension received by family members of deceased persons. In the following cases, least of the following is allowed as deduction: 33.13% of family pension, or 15,000, whichever is less. But anyhow, this deduction not applicable in case of those family pensions which are exempted under section 1018 as well as 1019, because already these two are fully exempted. In that case, what is the fun of giving this deduction? That is outright fully exempted. Okay, chalo. And next one is called as any other expenditure which are relevant only for the particular income. See the word, any other expenditure not being capital nature but wholly and exclusively incurred to earn that income. So this is generalized topic. Whatever the general expenses relevant to such income exclusively allowed, but not in capital nature. So capital expenditures are not allowed. Next one, interest on enhanced compensation or compensation in case of compulsory acquisition of immovable property. As I told you, 50% is allowed as deduction. That means 50% deduction allowed, 50% is taxable. Already this topic we have already covered in the other discussions. Okay, chalo. With this, section number 57 has been completed. Next topic is section number 58. Inadmissible expenditure means no deduction will be allowed. Okay, even though you incurred such expenses, even though that expenses are relevant for that income, not at all allowed. Number one, personal expenditure, your wife shopping expenditure or your children's school fees, these kind of personal expenses not at all allowed. Next one, interest or salary which is paid outside India without deduction of tax. Suppose sometimes the payees are non-residents or the payees are resident or staying in abroad. At the time we need to pay interest or salary, whatever the amount you paid without TDS, it is not allowed as deduction. The reason, in the persons who are located outside India, it is very difficult to government to realize the income tax from them. That is the reason they insisted the residents and our local persons, why don't you collect the tax, that means in the form of TDS, why don't you deduct and remit to the government? If you have not done the same, P&L debit also will not be allowed without TDS. Next one, wealth tax. Wealth tax is a direct tax which is not at all allowed. Already in that discussion I have told you, direct tax neither allowed as deduction. Whenever you have refunded, we have received back, not at all taxable. No doubt, interest on income tax refund is taxable. Next one, expenses of nature disallowed under section 40. Whenever you heard 40 disallowances, that means section 40 capital A subsection 2, excess payment relative. Section 40 capital A subsection 3, that is whatever the payment made by cash more than 10,000. All that disallowances also applicable here. Okay, whatever you have covered in PGBP chapter, same topics applicable here itself. Last but one is as follows: expenses in connection with winning from horse races, card games, TV shows, all these are not allowed. This topic already we have covered under section 115BB. Bad boys, I already told you. Now expenses in connection with winning from lotteries, crossword puzzles, races, gambling, betting, not allowed as deduction. But one thing for sure, one only expenses allowed, that is owning and maintaining of race horses, race gurram, maintaining and owning of race horses. The difference is there. For your info, everyone, horse races is different when compared to race horses. For your info, race horses is nothing but animals, whereas horse race is a activity. That means that is one activity where betting will be done, whereas race horses not like that. So hero Ramcharan Tejas or some persons will have the horses, they will feed the horses and they will train the horses, but they may not participate directly in the race, but they let out their horses to someone else to participate. So there is two different concepts. Now with respect to horse races, no expenses will be allowed. With respect to race horses maintenance, expenses are allowed. Therefore, in case of horse races, wherever no expenses are allowed, no set off and carry forward of losses, no set off and carry forward. Whereas with respect to expenses are allowed, yes, set off and carry forward provisions also applicable. Okay, chalo. Next and last, expenses as per section 44D in connection with the royalty agreement applicable for foreign company. Friends, this topic we will cover in the topic called as non-resident. There you will get clarity about this particular point. Section 44D, royalty agreement related, is also not at all allowed as deduction. So with this, we have done the section 56, that is charging section. 57, that is the deductions will be allowed. Section 58, no deductions will be allowed. Okay, and one more point is there, amendment, very important. Provisions of section 40 small a subsection class 1a, the disallowance of 30% of any sum payable to resident on which tax is deductible. But here, now what is that, I will tell you. Please follow. Point number 1, we are paying the amount to residents. When you are paying the amount to resident, TDS also applicable. For example, here one person I is there, one person R is there. For R, I am paying 10 lakh rupees rent. When I am paying 10 lakh rupees rent, compulsory I need to deduct the TDS, and the TDS portion I need to remit to Narendra Modi government. So the central government I need to remit. Suppose I have not deducted, I have not remitted. In this case, in my hands 30% will be disallowed. Correct na? Yes. So 30% will be disallowed. Balance amount will be allowed. So the same thing. Provisions of section 40 disallowance is also applicable. Okay. Chalo. This is the point. Next one. As I told you, in case of SSC being owner of horses, Ram Charan Tej example I told you, he maintained horses by him and for running in the horse races. The expenses in connection with owning and maintaining of race horses shall be allowed in computing income from the activity of owning and maintaining of horse races. That means here there is a possibility of losses also. The losses can be carried forward only for a maximum period of 4 years, and it can be set off against only such income itself. This topic already we have covered in the chapter called as set off and carry forward of losses. Okay. And last provision of this chapter, deemed income. The loss and expenditure already allowed as deduction earlier in computation of other sources and subsequently recovered. Yes, in this case that is taxable as a deemed income.